What's up, Cowboys Nation? It's time to lock in because we've got some eye-opening developments straight from Dallas. Offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer held court today, and while most pressers are business as usual, this one had some real substance. Quietly, during the Cowboys OTA stretch, a handful of players have started to separate themselves, and 5 names in particular are drawing serious internal buzz. Let's break it down. Among those earning recognition is a name that raised some eyebrows. Kaiir Elam, the cornerback we acquired from Buffalo? Yeah, him. Turns out he's not just fitting in. He's standing out. Schottenheimer didn't hold back. When asked about Elam, he called him one of the most impressive skill players through OTAs. And not just because of his technique or ball skills. It's the speed, the burst, the effort. Every week, the Cowboys track players' speed metrics, and Elam's consistently clocking in among the top defenders. That's no accident, and let's be real. After what we saw in Buffalo, some fans might have written him off, but maybe it wasn't about talent. Maybe it was about fit, because in Dallas, the coaching staff sees something. And more importantly, Elam is responding. He's absorbing the playbook, embracing the system, and taking coaching from guys like Al Harris and secondary coach Al Harris Jr. with confidence. He's running with urgency, not just before the snap, but through the whistle. And let's not sugarcoat it. The Cowboys' cornerback room needs a spark. There's been too much uncertainty. If Elam's the guy who starts to stabilize that back end, then this offseason move could quietly be one of the biggest steals of the year. Here's the hard truth. Trevon Diggs likely won't return until late November or even December. That's the reality the Cowboys are facing, and it means that until our All-Pro gets back on the field, the pressure shifts squarely to the rest of the cornerback room. And right now, that spotlight burns brightest on Kaiir Elam and Darren Bland. Let's be clear. These two aren't just filling in. They're being tasked with holding the line. With Diggs sidelined, this duo becomes the foundation of the secondary, and for the first half of the season, that role carries enormous weight. It's no longer about potential or upside, it's about producing now. Elam, in particular, is drawing attention for the right reasons. Fans, if you haven't already circled his name, you should. Because the way this staff is talking, and the way he's showing up at OTAs, there's a growing belief that Elam could be one of the surprise difference makers this season. When Dallas made the move to acquire him, the fit was obvious. Elam's a press man, corner at heart. That's what he does best. The Bills had him playing more zone concepts, a system that just didn't tap into his strengths. It's not that he was bad in Buffalo, but he wasn't being used in a way that maximized his skill set. That changes now. Brian Schottenheimer and the defensive staff have a plan for Elam. They didn't bring him in just to fill a spot. They brought him in because they saw the exact type of corner this scheme demands. Now, it's about execution. If he delivers, this secondary could survive the early stretch and maybe even thrive. Now, shifting gears to the linebacker group, it's been a position full of questions in recent years, but there's a different energy around it this offseason. Kenneth Murray Jr. has been getting early praise, and that's a promising sign for a unit that's quietly becoming one of the most interesting on the roster. But here's the surprise. Marist Liufau hasn't been generating the buzz many expected, and that's strange, because down the stretch last season, after DeMarvion Overshown went down, Liufau stepped up. He made plays. He showed physicality, instincts, and upside. So why isn't his name surfacing more in OTA coverage? Is it scheme fit? Is it just a slow start? Or are other names simply standing out more? Whatever the reason, it's something worth watching. Because for this linebacker room to take the next step, it's going to need guys like Liufau to keep climbing and stay in the conversation. Now let's talk about Kenneth Murray Jr. Because it's not just hype anymore. His name keeps coming up for a reason. Coaches aren't just mentioning him in passing. They're singling him out. And when that happens in OTAS, it means something. Schottenheimer spoke candidly about what Murray brings to this team, and it wasn't just coach speak. He reflected back to when he faced Murray while coaching against the Chargers. The words were clear: physical, fast, intelligent. A guy who forces you to change your game plan. Murray wore number 9 back then, and Schottenheimer admitted he was a problem on the field. That impression stuck. Now he's in Dallas, and he's running with the first team. Every practice, every drill. He's not just earning praise, he's living up to years of expectations. There's a belief inside the building that Murray can be a tone setter, a guy who leads by example, a player who combines athleticism with instinct and isn't afraid to bring the hit. And that's exactly the type of edge this linebacker group needs. But he's not the only one shaking things up. Jack Sanborn, a name not many had on their radar, is making serious noise. This guy might just be the biggest sleeper in the linebacker room. Gritty, relentless, undervalued. Everything about Sanborn screams blue-collar difference maker. It wouldn't be a shock at all if he finds himself starting come week 1. In fact, the more you watch and the more you listen, the more it feels like Sanborn is turning the depth chart on its head. And here's the twist. Many expected Maris Lufau to be a lock to start. He finished the last season strong, showing promise in extended snaps. But so far, his name hasn't been making waves. It's not that he's struggling. It's just that guys like Murray and Sanborn are shining brighter. They're forcing the coaches to take notice. They're turning competition into opportunity. And when DeMarvion Overshown returns, that linebacker corps could be a full-blown, 3-headed monster. Versatile, aggressive, built to hit and fly to the ball. If this group keeps developing the way it has through OTAs, don't be surprised if the Cowboys defense starts taking on a new identity: fast, violent, and fearless from the second level. Depth. That's the word that keeps coming up when you look at this Cowboys linebacker group. And not just depth for the sake of numbers, real, legitimate talent from top to bottom. It's becoming clear that Dallas has something special brewing at this position. Let's talk Jack Sanborn again for a second. You can hear the respect in Coach Schottenheimer's voice when he speaks about him. Not just as a player, but as a leader. The way he described Sanborn's presence, you'd think he's been in the building for years. Work ethic jumps off the tape, Schottenheimer said. He communicates well, understands the system, and helps the younger guys without hesitation. That last part matters. Sanborn's not just out there trying to win a starting job. He's elevating everyone around him. And that's the kind of leadership that takes a defense from good to elite. But then came the surprise. A reporter brought up DeMarvion Clark, and while Schottenheimer didn't go out of his way to mention him, what he did say was eye-opening. Clark, he said, has taken a noticeable step forward, not just physically, which was never in question, but mentally. He's diagnosing plays quicker. He looks more comfortable, more in control. He's a pleaser, Schottenheimer explained. He wants to do everything the right way, and the connection he's built with Coach Dave Borgonzi, that's been huge. Sometimes it's those quiet relationships between player and coach that shape entire careers. And right now, but Clark's bond with Borgonzi is unlocking the next level of his game. What's even more encouraging, Schottenheimer said the coaching staff, particularly Borgonzi, has done a phenomenal job building chemistry with this entire linebacker group. That matters. This unit isn't just competing, it's growing together. And with so many new faces in the room, that cohesion is going to be critical once the season kicks off. When you start piecing it all together, the rise of Sanborn, the resurgence of Clark, the addition of Kenneth Murray Jr., and the eventual return of DeMarvion Overshown, you're looking at a group with power, versatility, and purpose. If the Cowboys defense wants to rewrite the narrative in 2025, it might just start with the heart of the unit, the linebackers. Now here's the twist no one saw coming. DeMarvion Clark may not be heading out the door after all. For much of the offseason, the assumption was that Clark, despite his athletic upside, might be the odd man out in a deep and evolving linebacker room. But based on coach Brian Schottenheimer's recent comments, that narrative could be shifting fast. Schottenheimer spoke highly of Clark's growth, his work ethic, and perhaps most importantly, his connection with linebackers coach Dave Borgonzi. That kind of relationship, rooted in trust and development, goes a long way in determining roster decisions. Clark's making his case not just with physical traits, which have never been in doubt, but by fully buying into the Cowboys' process. He's been engaged, detailed, and aligned with the coaching staff's expectations. If he carves out a role as premium depth, a rotational linebacker with starter-level experience, that's a major asset for Dallas, especially in a league where injuries and adjustments are inevitable. Frankly, many around the team expected Clark's time in Dallas to be winding down. Instead, he's scrapping to stay. And so far, he's winning that battle. But perhaps the most unexpected name to rise during OTAs is Miles Sanders. Sanders was viewed by some as a potential rotational back, a secondary piece behind Javonte Williams. But over the last few weeks, the former Eagle has quietly and consistently climbed into the spotlight. The Cowboys coaching staff isn't surprised. Schottenheimer reminded everyone that Sanders' talent was never in question. He's been a headache for Dallas before, and now he's wearing the star. I don't know why anybody would be surprised with Miles' ability, Schottenheimer said. We've seen what he can do in the NFC East. He's explosive, he's smart, and he can hurt you in multiple ways. Indeed, Sanders is showing off that dual threat potential. Whether it's running between the tackles or catching passes out of the backfield, he's proving to be more than just a depth piece. And with the Cowboys still evaluating their running back rotation, Sanders could force his way into a much larger role than fans expected. While the talk early on centered around names like Deuce Vaughn or Javonte Williams, it's Sanders whose name keeps coming up, both inside the locker room and out. As the Cowboys head toward the mandatory OTA phase, all eyes will be on how these hidden gems continue to evolve. From rising veterans like Clark and Sanders to potential breakout defenders like Kaiir Elam and Kenneth Murray Jr., this offseason has already delivered some intriguing developments.